the Mandela Effect. It wasn't until recently that I realized that the mandala literally teaches you the understanding that everything changes. Buddha used to take the monks that wouldn't let go of their issues, wouldn't let go of the things that they wanted to hold on to, and he would have them basically do a mandala. And basically, it's sand that you're putting in different places to make this image. And then at the very end, you literally whoosh it away, or you put it together in like a jar and you release it naturally into nature, into the water. Either way, the whole point is you put a lot of time into it, and you have to understand that everything changes and everything can be let go. So when you look at this is where it gets kind of interesting when you're looking at the mandala and Mandela effect. Okay. Mandela effect, the effect of understanding that everything changes. Mandela effect, the effect of mass consciousness remembering things differently than the way that they are today. Without the ME, you would never know anything changed. Those who are remembering things differently than the way that they are today are actively participating in the double slit experiment. And I'm going to show you that here in a second. But before we get to that, those of you that don't know what the Mandela effect is, I've got some live examples for you. Okay. So when we look at Oreo double stuff, majority of people, and by majority, I'm talking millions. Okay. The understanding is we're not talking about 5 people who are like, no, it used to have 1. No, we're talking about millions of people who basically said there used to be 2. But now when you buy Oreos, there's 1F, double stuff. Okay. When you go and you look at Disney movies, everybody seems to remember Tinkerbell going through the castle and then hitting the Disney part. Well, when you watch movies now, no matter how old they are, it doesn't exist anymore. Okay. Another fantastic one is Cap'n Crunch. I love this one because I remember Captain Crunch. I find it fascinating that it's Cap'n Crunch. And so that's one too, where you have millions of people who remember it a certain way. Scooby-Doo, great one. Shaggy had an Adam's apple. In fact, every single time he was scared, he'd swallow it. You'd see it go up and down, showing that he was scared. Well, now when you watch the cartoon, nothing. You can't find it anywhere. Curious George. Everyone remembers it having a tail. It's kind of odd he doesn't have a tail. And Caitlin brought up a very good point. When you go back and watch these things, look at all the different things that Curious George actually would have done if he had a tail, and see whether or not, it's showing that it changed, or whether or not it's always been that way. And one of my favorites, because it's probably the most modern, is when you go back and watch the Matrix movie, there is no quote that says, "What if I told you?" It doesn't exist. And so these are things, these are examples of Mandela effects. Okay. So a lot of times when people learn about this, they feel like they're going crazy. They're super defensive over it, as if it not being that way is just going to break you. And that's why I want to talk about this. And that's why I chose to specifically bring this up, because I'm going to show you guys another perspective. The double slit experiment expanded. 2D equals duality, the way it was. Okay, we can talk about spirituality this way. You guys remember the old school sacrifice, follow the Lord, fear the Lord. That's 2D. That's all out of here. Okay, most of us can agree that who we were when these Mandela effect situations happened, we're less aware than who we are today. Okay, I'd be first to admit that. We watched movies, saw logos, and listened to songs in a rather unaware state. Okay, not completely unaware, because no one's ever completely, but more unaware than where we are. 3D is duality plus a third quantum option. Anything between one pole and this pole in duality, you now have the option of a third option. To choose the 3D is to choose to notice the change, the shift, the crack in reality. Those who remember things differently are people who are choosing to go through the 3D. If you do not own the choice feels forced on you. I run a group. I have 180,000 people in that group. And most of the time they just argue over who's right and who's wrong because they feel like it was forced on them, instead of looking at it and being like, what if you chose it? Right? Now, this is where we're going to get into the bigger part of this. Okay. I want you to understand this. You are the chooser. You are always the chooser. In everything in life, you're the chooser. And the Kabbalah definitely focuses on getting you to understand that. You are also the observer. Okay. You are both in this situation. So basically what is happening is you have 2D, which is a door right here, which is going to give particles. We want to think of particles as unchangeable things. In other words, that's the way it is. It always was, Luke, I am your father. There is no changing this in any way, shape, or form. Okay. The 3D door is waves. Well, what do waves represent? Waves represent change. the ability to go with the flow, get into that water. It's going to shift, it's going to change, and there's nothing wrong with that. And most importantly, when you own that side, you now can find all the areas that have actually changed without being angry. It's not being forced on you. You're choosing the doorway. Okay. So therefore, your outcome is going to be decisive on which door that you're actually choosing. Okay. So if you end up choosing the 2D, you're collapsing the 3D, which is why people who are fighting against it are fighting, because they literally can't see the other door. The people that are choosing the 3D remember the 2D and are getting very frustrated because they're like, wait a minute, this isn't the way that I remember. So the area that's most important in this is, what do you own? Is it being forced on you? Because if it's being forced on you, we could go through all the list. CERN did it when they turned on the Large Hadron Collider. We basically could have jumped into a new one. Maybe we all died in 2012. That's a big one people like to talk about. We just jumped to a whole new reality. We got that one. We also have aliens. Aliens have done it to us. So there's the government's done it. There are all these things where it could happen to you. But what happens if you ask the question, what if I chose this? And that's what I wanted people to see from this. There's another way to look at the Mandela effect as a way to wake you up, as a way to get you to see a difference between the two, so that therefore you can realize that everything can change. Everything can change.